Okay, so this orange paper that I handed you is called Factor Flowchart, and you always start at start. And if you've forgotten how to do factoring, this will help you. This just tells you where to go. So after start, it says factor out the GCF. So whatever question you do, you always look to see if you can factor out the GCF first. And then once you factor out the GCF, if it's a binomial, then you would go over here. If it's 4 terms, you'd go down. If it's a trinomial, you'd go over here. So it like tells you what to do and guides you. So we're going to look at the first example, which is 2x cubed minus 18x. And what's the first thing that we should do with 2x cubed minus 18x? Factor out the GCF. Is there one? 2x. So we factor out the GCF. That's like using the distributive property backwards, undistributing it, dividing it out. And we're going to get 2x parenthesis x squared minus 9. And then we use our factor flowchart, and x squared minus 9 is a binomial. So we look at our factor flowchart, and when it is a binomial, you ask yourself, are both of the terms perfect cubes? So x squared and 9, are those both perfect cubes? Cubes. Yeah. So I would go to no. And then my next question is x squared minus 9. Subtraction. So yeah, so I'm going to go down, and is it a difference of squares? So we're taking 2 perfect squares and subtracting them. X squared minus 9, yes. So then it tells you how to factor it. It says to do this factoring, which I'll do in just a second. And then after that, there's one more arrow that says go back to start with each factor. So we'll go through that. So we'll have 2x, bring that down. And then we're going to factor x squared minus 9 to x plus 30 and x minus 30. Remember doing difference of squares last year? That's everybody's favorite. Okay. It says to go back to start with each factor. So I'm going to go back to start with the factor x plus 30. And I'm just going to go through the factor flowchart. Once you understand it, we won't have to go through it like this every time. So you want to see if x plus 3 has a GCF, which it does not. And then x plus 3 is a binomial, so we'll go over here. Is x plus 30 perfect cubes? You guys know what cubes means, right? X to the 3rd power. So is x plus 3 cubed? No. Is x plus 3 subtraction? No. So if it is no, then I know that I'm done with that one. So we're going to go back with x minus 3. Same thing, just the x minus 3. There's no GCF. It's a binomial, not perfect cubes. X minus 3 is subtraction. So go down here. Is it a difference of squares? Is x a perfect square? No. So then if it's no, then stop, you're done. So you need to make sure that you're done before you know that you're done factoring. That's all right. All right, number 2. Number 2, where are we going to start? Number 2, where should we start? Where should we start? Factor out the greatest common factor. Is there a greatest common factor to factor out? No. So you don't have to do that part. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go to trinomial because there's 3 terms. And this next column is totally optional. This next column you may or may not have learned in a previous course. So I'm not going to reteach it right now. We're just doing review. So if you know this next column, perfect square trinomial factoring, you can do it. If not, then just skip it and go over to factor by guess and check. There is one more method. There's this, there's this split the middle method, or the AC method. You might have learned that, but you can totally do it. Here's the directions. But I'm just going to do everything by guess and check because it works. So there are other methods to use. So remember with guess and check, you're just guessing what goes where and then foiling it back together to check. So we're going to make 2 parentheses. And when you're doing FOIL and you multiply the first and the last, I have to get, or I'm sorry, the first and the first, I have to get x squared. So what multiplies together are going to be x squared? x and x. And then when I do the last, I multiply last and last, I get 3. So it's got to be 3. 1 and 3. And then I have to figure out the signs so that when I multiply the inner and the outer, they add up to equal 4x. Oops. So if I multiply x and 3, I get 3x. If I multiply 1 and x, I get 1x. Does that add up to give me 4x? So then I've checked it. So you guess what goes here, and then you FOIL it back together to check it. Guess and check. Also need to make sure I can't factor that any further. But if x is to the first power, it won't factor further. If x is to the first power, it'll never factor further. At any point where you feel like I'm going too slow for you because factoring is really easy and something you remember, please feel free to work ahead. Just check to make sure your answers are right when I do it. And I'm probably not even going to do every single one here. All right, the next one I want to do is number 3. So number 3 is, what do we do first? Factor out the GCF. Excellent. Did. Okay, try to remember. So is there a GCF? Yeah. So where are we going to go next? Binomial. The first question, are they perfect cubes? No. Next question, is it subtraction? Yeah. Is it difference of squares? It's difference of squares. So I can square root 9x squared and get 3x. We do 1 plus, 1 minus, square root the 1 and get 1. All right, difference of squares. Can I factor either of these further? If x is to the first power, the answer is going to be no. And it's to the first power. So this is it. Okay, number 4. Another binomial. GCF? Okay, second question is a binomial. So are they perfect cubes? This one is yes. So there is a formula on your factor flow chart that you saw in Algebra 2 that tells you how to factor the perfect cubes. This one's a plus, so I'm going to use the plus formula, but they look almost identical. So the formula says if we have x cubed plus b cubed, or a cubed plus b cubed, then we're going to cube root those and write a plus b. And then the second parenthesis, we're going to square the a. At the very end, we're going to square the b. In the middle, we'll put minus the two numbers multiplied together, ab. So this one is x cubed plus 1. I'm just going to copy it down here. The first parenthesis, we have to cube root each of these. So what's the cube root of x cubed? X. The cube root of 1. 1 to the third is 1. Right? So 1. Second parenthesis, we're going to square the first term. So x squared. At the end, I square the last term. So 1. In the middle, we do minus and the 2 multiply together. You need to make sure that you can't factor it further. So the x plus 1, that is a binomial that has x to the first power, so that's factored all the way. The second one would be a trinomial, and you can spend all your day if you'd like to guess and check this trinomial. But if you've done like perfect cube factoring, this one will never factor further. It will never do it. So I'm going to tell you right now, if you remember, you don't have to check that when it's done. Okay, I'm going to skip ahead to number 6 so we can try another one like that one. So look at number 6. We'll come back to 5, maybe. Look at number 6. So is there a GCF? First step always, is there a GCF? There is not. It's a binomial. Are they perfect cubes? Number 6. Okay, so we're going to do the cube root. What is the cube root of 8? What is the cube root of x cubed? We bring down the minus, and then the cube root of 1 is 1. That's the first parenthesis. Second parenthesis, you have to square the first term. So when I square 2x, I get 4x squared. Then we square the last term, 1. And then in the middle, we multiply them together. And we use the signs from the formula. So there's always, with these cubes, there's always just one minus sign. Every single time there's just one minus sign. If it's a minus, that minus sign is going to go here. And the plus, it was the second one, second sign. And it was a plus, it was the second. All right, how about number 7? Is there a GCF? No. It's a binomial. It's a perfect cubes. What's the cube root of x cubed? It is not 4. X. And then the cube root of 64 is 4. Then in the second parenthesis, we square, excuse me, we square the first term, so we do x squared. And then the last number, we square the second. So we have 16. Then we multiply them together, 4x. All right, questions about the cube? What was your favorite? I've heard your favorite. Then let's go back to 5. Is there a GCF in all the terms? No. So we'll skip the GCF step, and this one's 4 terms. So we're going to use something called factor by grouping, and all the directions are written there. I'm going to go through them. I'm not going to read them word for word. And then at the bottom it says go back to start with each factor. So I wanted a different color. So the first thing we're going to do is group the first 2 terms and the last 2 terms. We're going to make groups, and you're going to factor out the GCF from each group. So we're going to factor each group. So in this group, I'm going to take out x squared. I'm left with x plus 2. Second group, I'm going to take out 4, and I'm left with x plus 2. Are the parentheses exactly the same for both? They need to be, or this doesn't work. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the distributive property. I'm going to undistribute. I'm going to factor out the parenthesis. So we're going to pull that out. I'm going to undistribute it and put it in front. And when we use the distributive property, you put something in front, then you open parentheses, and you write what's left. We get x squared plus 4. Okay, remember doing factor by grouping in the past? Once we get to this step, we need to make sure that both parentheses are factored as far as they go. So x plus 2, since x is to the first power, I know that one's done. X squared plus 4, I need to check. So we'll go through our factor flow chart. Do it this way. It is a binomial. Are both terms perfect cubes for x squared plus 4? No. Is it subtraction? No. So I'm done. That one's factored all the way. Okay. All right, we'll do another one of those in just a second. We'll skip ahead to number 10. Let's go to 10. So what's our set. Factor out the GCF. Every single time you always want to look and see if there's a GCF. For number 10, is there one? Nah. So then the number 10 is a trinomial, and you can skip that perfect square trinomial column, go all the way to guess and check. What first numbers do we not multiply together to give us x squared? X and x. What do we multiply together to give us 1? 1 and 1. But when we multiply it all the way back and we FOIL it, it has to have a minus 2x in the middle. So how am I going to make this work so it has a minus 2x when I FOIL it back together? These two have to add up to give me a minus 2. What do I need to do? Elijah, what did you say? Put subtraction signs. Okay. And then that will give me a negative 1x. And a negative 1x, good, that adds up to give me a negative 2x or a minus 2x. All right, so is this how you write your answer? How do we write our answer? You're going to write it as x minus 1 squared. When they're exactly the same, you are going to combine them and write it as a perfect square. So what factoring is doing is unmultiplying. So if you were multiplying this back together, you would have started here and then written it twice and then FOILed it to get that. So we have to go all the way back to there. And as a pre-calc student, you should be able to write that. Recognize those are the same. How about 11? Guess and check again. Multiply x and x. What do we multiply together to give us negative 6? But it has to add to give us positive 1. And 6 and 1 is 6 and 1 going to give us a positive 1. Right. So I can't use that. So this is called guessing and checking. 2 and 3, is that going to give us a positive 1? Sort of. What do I have to do to one of them? I've got to make one of them what? Which one do I subtract? The 2, right. Okay. How about number 12? It's another guess and check. When I look at my first term, I have 2x squared, so I've got to have a 2x and an x. And with my last term's a minus 2, so I know one of them is going to be a 2, and one of them is going to be a 1, and one of them is going to be negative. But you just kind of got to play around with it and figure it out. So I'm going to put the 2 here and the 1, and that's going to give me a 4 and a 1. Is that going to help me get a 3? What has to be negative? The 1. Good. All right, I'm going to skip to... We'll do number 20 and we'll do 21. Okay? Nope, I lied. 16 and 20. 16 and 20. Let's do 16. And if you've already done 20, I can give you the answer if you want to check it out. All right, number 16. GCF? Is there a GCF? Nah. Then it is a binomial. And our question when we have a binomial is, are they both perfect cubes? X to the 4th, is that a cube? Nah. Is it subtraction? Yes. Is it a difference of squares? Is something multiplied by itself x to the 4th? What times itself is x to the 4th? X squared. And 16 is a perfect square also. So make 1 plus 1 minus. And then what do we do? We gotta check each one. Because they're not, it's not x to the first power, it's to the second power, so it's possible we can go further. X squared plus 4, go through the factor flow chart. X squared plus 4 is a binomial, not cubes, not subtraction. X squared plus 4 is done. But I go through it again with x squared minus 4. It is subtraction, is x squared minus 4 difference of squares. Yes, it is. Thanks for yelling that out. So we have to factor this one further. We have 2 parentheses, 1x, 1 plus, 1 minus, and 2. And then are those factored all the way? Yes, because they're x over star. Eventually in this class, we're going to be like factoring this stuff and then graphing it, and it's going to look, I don't know what this one looks like. This one will look something like that. I don't know. I don't know exactly. We're going to be graphing that stuff later. Second. You guys can't wait. Second semester, go. All right, what's the other one I said? The last one, 21. Nope. 21. Okay. Is there a GCF in all 4 terms? There's not, so we're going to do factor by grouping. The reason why I want to do this one is because this one does not have a plus sign in between. It has a minus sign. So you kind of have to put the minus sign in the parentheses and stick a plus sign in between. Minus is the same thing as plus and negative. So that's what I did. I made it plus and negative. So the plus sign is in between, the negative sign goes in the parentheses. So that when we factor stuff out, I'm going to factor out of this one, x cubed. I have x plus 2. But what, excuse me, when I factor out of this one here, a negative 8, we end up getting an x plus 2. So I need to factor out that negative sign to change the signs. The parentheses match, so we undistribute those, and we get x plus 2 in front. Everything left over, x cubed minus 8. So we did factor by grouping. So the reason why this one does not say squared, this is wrong, don't put a squared there. The reason why it does not say squared is because it's the distributive property. So if I were going to put this back in, I would take x plus 2 times x cubed and x plus 2 times minus 8. So I'm like distributing it back in. There's not 2 of them here. Remember the distributive property? Yeah. So this one's not squared when you do factor by grouping. All right, are we done? Please say yes. Just kidding. It's not true though. Are we done? What can factor further? X plus 2? One of those cubed ones, huh? So we have to cube root, and we get x minus 2. Then we have to do the other parenthesis where you square the first one, so x squared. We square the 2 at the end, 4, and we multiply them together, 2x. And then it should be done. So your assignment, let me say on here, is the bottom portion, the 18 questions on the bottom. If you tried any of the extras on the top and you want to make sure they're right, I have them in my hand. But your assignment is the bottom portion. The rest of the class is going to be our study hall. Normally our study hall is A, but today it's D. So if you'd like to work on that, ask me questions, feel free. If you want to work together, that's fine. If you have other assignments to work on, that's okay. This is your study hall. All right? Thank you. Good first day.